All right, this is part 6 of learning to read with Aesop's Fables. We're doing the Hare and the Tortoise. And, well, let's go ahead and read the story from the beginning. Here's the hare, here's the tortoise, and there is the fox looking on. The Hare and the Tortoise. A hare was one day making fun of a tortoise for being so slow upon his feet. "Wait a bit," said the tortoise. "I'll run a race with you, and I'll wager that I win." "Oh, well," replied the hare, who was much amused at the idea. "Let's try and see." And it was soon agreed that the fox should set a course for them and be the judge. When the time came, both started off together, but the hare was soon so far ahead that he thought he might as well have a rest, so down he lay and fell fast asleep. That's where we're at. We're going to finish the story today in this lesson. So the next word is meanwhile. That's like two words put together. It's mean and while. And when you put them together, you get meanwhile. So mean, the EA says E, and the M and the N are pretty easy. E, N. Mean. And in the word while, we have the WH saying W like a W. The H is silent there. And then the E at the end makes the I say its name. So it's W, I'll. And the E is silent. So while. Oops. One sec. Mean while. And so that is meanwhile. Meanwhile, we already know this word. The tortoise, we know, kept plodding on. Meanwhile, the tortoise kept plodding on, and in time reached the goal. So kept plodding, our next word. So kept. The K says K, and the E, eh, and the PT together say pt. Kept, kept. Plodding. The PL says pl, and OD says odd. So here we have plod, and this is ding. And really, you don't say the D twice. It's just these two D's together just says duh one time. So plod. Plodding. And that's the word plodding, moving along slowly. And we've already seen a lot of words that end in ing. That ing is common. Running, talking, and so on. Even just words that end in ing, like ring or sing. Okay? Meanwhile, the tortoise kept plodding on. On. O-N is on. Okay? You want to memorize that because not every time you see O-N will be on. For example, in the word one, it sounds almost like a U. One. But O-N, on. And we've done that repeatedly, so we know that. And in time, so in, I-N, like in win. In time, the I says its name again, like in meanwhile. We have the E at the end of the word, making the I say its name. Here we have the E at the end of the word, making the I say its name. So it's not Tim, it's time. Okay. Reached the goal. So reached The ed at the end is the d. And so now we need to look at the reach, the other part. Reach. R says The EA, like up here in mean, says E. So mean, reach, and the CH says ch. Ch. Okay. We have a word. A common word, you'll see. What is it? Each. Like each day, each car, each person. Another way of almost saying everybody, or every one of them. Okay? Each person is like every person. And there it is. Each, spelled EACH. Reach, just puts an R in front of it and says reach, like to grab something, reach out and get it. Okay? Now, we can go on to the next sentence. At last, the hare woke up with a start and dashed on at his fastest, but only to find that the tortoise had already won the race. Okay, so let's go ahead, create a new slide for this. And it says at, like cat, mat, fat, sat. Okay, that's the AT. Last, here we get the AST, asked, like as in past, fast. Okay, that's a good one to know. At last, the hare, we already know those, the hare woke up. Woke. Okay. Woke. And that O-K-E makes the O say the same. So it's not walk or walkie. It's woke. Because the E makes the O say O. Woke. Other words with that? What do you think this one's me? Spa. Oak. Okay. Spoke. At last, the hare woke up with a start. Okay. Woke up. The UP says up, and we see it in a common word. We drink out of these. That's a up, cup. With, you want to memorize that one, should know it. With, the W says w, and the ITH, if, with. Okay. After with, woke up with a start. ART. You see the ART at the end there? Okay. The ART says start. Other words that say that: art, cart, like that's a cart at the supermarket, or a cart, like the go-kart that someone would drive, you know, when they're in the little cars. Okay. Part, a part of something. And dashed on. Dashed. We've seen the ED today, right? We saw it up here with reached. Okay. Reached, but now it's dashed. But we're going to look at mostly dash. Okay? Dash. That autocorrect is making it capitalize every time. Ash. And so, are there other words with that? I mean, there's ash, ashes, ash, cash. Here's a good one. Cash. dashed on at his fastest. His. In the middle of his, we see is. His and is. His fastest. Okay. And here we see the same asked that we saw up here. Last, past, fast. Well, there it is. Fast. Okay. But now we just ended the word with est. Fastest. I mean, nobody was faster, or he couldn't have run faster in this context, right? And dashed on at his fastest, as fast as he could. But only to find that the tortoise had already won the race. Okay. So let's go ahead, make a little more space here. But, like cut, only, that's when you'll have to memorize. It's not only, even though there's the on. Okay, it's only to find, kind, mind. That ind says ein. Oops. But only to find that the tortoise, we've already done all those words, that the tortoise had, bad, see the ad, says add, oops. That the tortoise had already, this has like all, like its own word almost, and then read. Here's an exception to what we saw earlier. So remember how we said up here, mean, the EA says E, or reach, the EA says E. Well, here, look, READ, it can be read by itself sometimes, if it's the present. Read, like I read books. But it can also be read, like yesterday I read a book. Well, in this word, even though it's EA, it's ed. So it's all read E. Already. One. Okay. So we know one. I believe we talked over that one. If not, that's the on here is not. Thought it was over here. No. Talked about on. One. The on is not on there. It's un. So you want to memorize that one. One. The race. Ace. Space. The ACE says ace. Now we get the conclusion. So let's read that all together, actually. Meanwhile, the tortoise kept plodding on, and in time reached the goal. Let's go a little faster. Meanwhile, the tortoise kept plodding on, and in time reached the goal. Meanwhile, the tortoise kept plodding on, and in time reached the goal. Next sentence. At last, the hare woke up with a start and dashed on at his fastest, but only to find that the tortoise had already won the race Let's read that a little faster. At last, the hare woke up with a start and dashed on at his fastest, but only to find that the tortoise had already won the race. Faster. At last the hare woke up with a start and dashed on at his fastest, but only to find that the tortoise had already won the race. Let's put them together, these two sentences. Meanwhile, the tortoise kept plodding on and in time reached the goal. At last the hare woke up with a start and dashed on at his fastest, but only to find that the tortoise had already won the race. And here we get slow and steady wins the race. How do you win a race? Well, in life, sometimes it just is keeping at it and not quitting and not taking those breaks and stopping, right? Slow and steady. Be steady at it, at the work you're doing. So let's go ahead and look at these words. Slow. The OU here says O, so slow. It doesn't always say O. Sometimes it says owl, like cow. Okay, but sometimes it does say O, like in toe. Rhymes with slow there. And here we have slow and, look at that, steady. Steady. See the EA? In this case, it's just like ready. Already, steady. This right here, this part is saying Eddie. Already, steady. Slow and steady wins, we know that, the race. We know all those words. So let's read it. Slow and steady wins the race. Slow and steady wins the race. Okay, let's read the whole story from the top now that we've done it all, and you will have successfully learned how to read The Hare and the Tortoise. Let's read it. The Hare and the Tortoise. A hare was one day making fun of a tortoise for being so slow upon his feet. "Wait a bit," said the tortoise. "I'll run a race with you, and I'll wager that I win." "Oh, well," replied the hare, who was much amused at the idea. "Let's try and see." And it was soon agreed that the fox should set a course for them, and be the judge. When the time came, both started off together, but the hare was soon so far ahead that he thought he might as well have a rest, so down he lay and fell fast asleep. Meanwhile, the tortoise kept plodding on, and in time reached the goal. At last, the hare woke up with a start and dashed on at his fastest, but only to find that the tortoise had already won the race. Slow and steady wins the race. Good job on finishing it. Take care.